What if I told you the reason you aren't fluent in a new language isn't, because you lack the time, but because you wrongly believe you need this entire hour every single day to study?
Yeah, that's a massive misconception.
Right. I mean, we all do it. You stare at your calendar, you see this solid wall of work and life obligations, and you just tell yourself that since you can't find 60 uninterrupted minutes, you simply can't learn that massive new skill you've been dreaming about.
It's totally paralyzing.
Exactly. So today we are dismantling that myth of the perfect study session. We're looking at how just 15 fragmented minutes a day can, fundamentally rewire your brain's language centers.
Which is huge.
It is. We're jumping into this incredibly insightful framework from a segment of the Listen and Fall in Love show. It's an excerpt hosted by Emma and Ryan called English Mornings, The Power of Small Habits. And, while their focus is on mastering English, the cognitive psychology they are tapping into applies to learning absolutely anything.
For sure. The beauty of their approach is how it attacks the primary bottleneck of adult learning, which is cognitive overload. I mean, we live in an era of limitless information but zero free time. And that creates this constant low-level guilt.
Oh, the guilt is real.
Right. We feel like we're failing before we even begin, simply because we cannot carve out these massive, uninterrupted blocks of study time. But Emma and Ryan systematically strip away that guilt by utilizing the hidden minutes you actually already possess.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Emma and Ryan are directly challenging that exhausting traditional study mentality that keeps so many of us paralyzed.
They really do.
They start by taking aim at the myth of the perfect morning routine. I mean, we see this everywhere in productivity culture. The idea that to be successful, you need to, wake up at 5 a.m., do an hour of meditation, drink some elaborate green smoothie, and study intensely before the sun even comes up.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting just talking about it.
Honestly, it does. But Emma and Ryan strip all of that away immediately. They emphasize that you absolutely do not need a 5 a.m. wake-up call. You do not need this idealized Instagram perfect morning.
No, not at all.
They are talking about taking your real morning. The messy one. The one where you are just trying to find your keys and get out the door.
They recognize that trying to overhaul your entire life to learn a language is just a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
Instead, they advocate for a concept that behavioral psychologists call habit stacking.
Habit stacking, right.
Exactly. You don't create a new block of time. You piggyback a new, fragile habit onto a robust, hardwired habit that you already do every single day.
Like making coffee or something.
Exactly. Making coffee, brushing your teeth, staring blankly out the window while the toaster pots.
I do a lot of that. Think about what most of us do the second we open our eyes, though. We grab the phone, we open social media, we start scrolling.
Always chasing that immediate dopamine hit.
Right. But Emma and Ryan suggest this tiny, low-friction pivot. Instead of opening that social media app, you just press play on a short English podcast.
It's so simple.
It is. You are brewing the exact same coffee in the exact same kitchen, but you are pairing it with a different input.
It's fascinating here is the profound psychological relief embedded in this approach. By saying you don't need another hour, Emma and Ryan are basically dismantling the amygdala's threat response to overwhelming tasks.
The threat response. Wait, how so?
Well, when you think about studying grammar for an hour, your brain perceives that as a high-effort threat to your energy reserves. And so it throws up a wall of procrastination.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. But if the goal is simply to hit play while the coffee brews, the cognitive friction is practically zero. You completely bypass the brain's defense mechanisms.
It's like finding loose change hidden down in the cushions of your couch.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, except instead of pulling out a quarter, you are pulling out these hidden, fragmented minutes of your day. You aren't manufacturing new time. You are just reclaiming what was already there, buried under a mindless scroll, or like you said, a daydream while you brush your teeth.
Exactly.
But hold on, let's look at the reality of this for a second. If I am making breakfast, the dog is barking at the mailman, and I'm frantically trying to figure out if I have clean socks for the day.
Which is most mornings, let's be honest.
Exactly. My brain is totally fractured. So is listening to a language podcast while I am that distracted actually effective, or is it just putting on background noise to make me feel productive without actually doing the work?
That's a really valid question. If the goal was deep, intensive grammar memorization, then distracted listening would be useless.
Right.
But that is not what Emma and Ryan are aiming for in this morning listen phase. In linguistics, there is a concept called comprehensible input. and it's paired with what's known as the affective filter.
The affective filter.
Yeah. It's essentially your brain's stress barrier. When you sit down at a desk to formally study, your affective filter is often sky high because of performance anxiety.
Oh, like you're taking a test.
Exactly.
Hmm.
But when you are just listening while making eggs, the filter is incredibly low. The goal here isn't 100% perfect comprehension. It's simply to get the brain engaged with the rhythm, the cadence, and the sounds of the language in a low-stakes environment.
Ah, okay. So you are acclimatizing your brain to the waters rather than throwing yourself into the deep end and forcing yourself to swim.
Exactly.
You are replacing the passive consumption of social media with the passive consumption of a target language. That makes total sense for reclaiming the morning without adding stress.
It really does.
But there's an obvious danger here, right? Because passive consumption alone doesn't create fluency.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, you can't just listen to someone play the piano for a year and then expect to sit down and play a Chopin nocturne.
Definitely not.
So how do we transition from passive listening to active practice, like actually producing the language without ruining this wonderfully low pressure, low friction morning vibe we just established?
This is the critical pivot in Emma and Ryan's framework. It moves from the listen phase to what we can classify as the micro-output phases.
Micro-output.
And the key word there is micro.
Oh.
They break this down into two incredibly small, actionable steps, which are speak and write.
Got it.
Let's look at the speaking component first. They advocate for speaking for just 1 single minute, 60 seconds.
Wow, just 1 minute.
Just one. And you don't even need a conversation partner. They actually want you to talk to yourself.
Which, I mean, requires a certain level of vulnerability even when you are alone in your kitchen.
Oh, absolutely.
They acknowledge that it might feel strange at first, but the strategy relies on incredibly simple, grounding phrases. Things like, today is going to be a good day, or I'm ready to learn.
Or simply, I'll do my best today.
Right. You literally just say it out loud into the empty room. And then immediately following that 60 seconds of speaking is the writing phase.
Yeah.
And they are extremely explicit about what this is not. It is not an essay. It is not some sprawling, deeply reflective diary entry.
Right. It is 3 simple sentences. You write down how you feel, what you want to do today, or one thing you are thankful for.
3 sentences.
Yep. And they emphasize a rule that is absolutely paramount here. The objective is not perfect grammar. Do not obsess over whether you conjugated the verb perfectly or used the right preposition.
Okay.
The core goal is strictly about building the habit of output.
Are you kidding me, though? Let's look at this critically for a second. 3 simple sentences. Talking to yourself for 60 seconds about having a good day.
I know, it sounds crazy.
That's not even a paragraph. How did that move the needle on mastering a complex language? It sounds like trying to water a giant redwood tree with a single eyedropper.
It really does seem insufficient until you look at the underlying mechanics of working memory.
Okay, tell me more about that.
The biggest hurdle in language learning isn't a lack of intelligence. It is the friction of translation.
A friction of translation.
Yeah. When we start learning a new language, we think in our native language, we translate it in our heads, and then we output the target language. That process eats up a massive amount of cognitive RAM.
Oh, I see.
If you sit down to write a 5-paragraph essay in a new language, your working memory just crashes. You get exhausted and you quit.
Because your brain is essentially doing triple the processing work for every single word.
Precisely. By limiting the output to just 3 basic sentences, you prevent cognitive overload. Emma and Ryan are intentionally setting the bar so low that it completely removes the fear of failure.
Because anyone can write 3 sentences.
Exactly. Anyone. By doing this micro output early in the morning, you are forcing the brain to bypass that heavy translation process before you had the energy to overthink it.
That's brilliant.
You are taking language out of the slow, analytical part of your brain and starting to push it into implicit memory, which is the same automatic system you use to ride a bike or tie your shoes.
So the brevity isn't a flaw. It is a neurological safeguard.
Spot on.
It keeps you under the threshold of cognitive fatigue. That makes getting on the board for the day incredibly easy. But if you just write 3 tiny sentences every day and then go about your normal life, how does the brain actually keep that information?
That's the catch.
Because my fear is that I would just forget Monday's 3 sentences by the time I'm writing Tuesday's 3 sentences. It feels like the knowledge would just evaporate into the ether.
And that is the trap of continuous novelty. If you are always just moving forward to the next new vocabulary word or the next new podcast episode, the foundation literally crumbles behind you. The brain is incredibly efficient at deleting information it doesn't think you need to survive. Which leads us to the crucial final step of Emma and Ryan's framework, which is retention through review.
Yes, the glue that holds all these micro habits together. Emma and Orion are very clear that you have to go back to yesterday's words. You have to read them again, say them again, and use them again.
It's non-negotiable.
And they use a really vivid analogy here. They say that learning without reviewing is like planting flowers but never watering them.
I love that analogy.
Me too. You put all this effort into digging the hole and planting the seed, which is learning the new word. But if you never water it through the review process, the flower simply dies in the dirt.
It perfectly illustrates how memory is not a static filing cabinet. It is an organic biological process.
Mm-hmm.
When you review material, you are actively combating the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve.
Remind me what that is.
Yeah, so Hermann Ebbinghaus was a psychologist who discovered that we lose about 70% of new information within 24 hours if we don't review it.
70%? Wow.
Yeah, it's brutal, but every time you review that word or sentence, you flatten the curve. You send a chemical signal to your hippocampus that says, hey, we are encountering this information again. It must be important for our environment. Move this from short-term holding into long-term storage.
Okay, so trying to learn a language by cramming for 3 hours on a Sunday afternoon is basically like trying to water a houseplant with a fire hose once a month.
Exactly.
The soil can only absorb so much at once, and the rest just runs off and makes a mess. This 15-minute method, with its built-in daily review, is essentially a drip irrigation system for your brain.
That is the exact mechanism at play. Spaced repetition is the drip irrigation of cognitive science.
I love that. And Emma and Ryan pair this concept with their expression of the day, which is little by little.
Little by little.
Yeah, they define it as slowly, step by step, without rushing, which sounds incredibly peaceful in theory, but, theory's easy. Does this actually work in the real chaotic world?
It does.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because Emma and Ryan don't just offer theory. They shared this brilliant story about a guy named Alex that perfectly proves how this math plays out in real life.
Alex is just the perfect avatar for the modern learner. He represents the exact dilemma we opened the show with.
He really does. Alex worked incredibly long hours every single day, and every evening he would make that classic doomed promise to himself, I will study English tonight.
We've all been there.
Right, but predictably, every night he was simply too exhausted. The tank was completely empty.
Of course it was.
So instead of continuing to fail at a late-night study marathon, Alex made one tiny adjustment. He decided to wake up just 15 minutes earlier. Not an hour, just 15 minutes.
Barely noticeable.
And look at how mathematically elegant his solution is. He took those 15 minutes and split them perfectly. A five split.
5 minutes of listening, 5 minutes of speaking, 5 minutes of writing and reviewing.
Nothing more. He didn't let it bleed into a 30-minute session when he was feeling motivated. He kept it to that strict 15-minute boundary.
Which is key to not burning out.
Exactly. And Emma and Orion note that after doing this consistently for 3 months, Alex experienced a massive breakthrough. He noticed he had naturally stopped translating every sentence in his head.
That's the holy grail of language learning.
It is. He was effortlessly starting to actually think in English.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Alex's story perfectly embodies that phrase, little by little. It is the ultimate proof of concept for the compounding power of consistency over volume.
Let's do the math on that, actually. 3 months. That is roughly 90 days. At 15 minutes a day, that is only about 22.5 hours of total practice time.
That's crazy when you put it like that.
People spend 22 hours binge-watching a single season of a television show in a single weekend.
Easily.
Yeah.
But if Alex had tried to cram those 22 hours into 2 weekend marathon sessions, he would have retained almost nothing. And his affective filter would have been so high from the stress that he likely would have quit from burnout.
Oh, without a doubt.
His breakthrough didn't come from the sheer volume of time spent in a single sitting.
Yeah.
It came from relentless, low-stress consistency.
Yeah.
The brain requires sleep to consolidate memories.
Mm-hmm.
By spreading those 22 hours across 90 sleep cycles, Alex allowed his brain to physically build the neural infrastructure required for fluency. Every single fluent speaker of any language was once a beginner. And Alex proves that simply showing up every single day, giving your brain that tiny drip irrigation of exposure is vastly more important than studying for 3 hours once a week.
So, what does this all mean?
Oh.
If we zoom out and look at the entire framework we've extracted from Emma and Ryan today, it is actually a profound shift in how we approach the mechanics of self-improvement.
It really is.
It means you stop waiting for the perfect block of free time, because that time does not exist. It means you swap that mindless morning scrolling for intentional, low-friction listening to bypass your brain's stress response. It means you embrace the awkwardness and spend just 1 minute speaking to yourself to grease the neurological grooves. You write your 3 simple sentences without worrying about perfect grammar so you don't crash your working memory. And crucially, you remember to water your metaphorical flowers by reviewing what you did yesterday to flatten the forgetting curve. The
Absolutely.
era of needing to be perfect and exhausted is out. 15 minutes of relentless, mathematically sound consistency is in.
It shifts the entire paradigm from a test of endurance to an exercise in behavioral design. It acknowledges our busy lives and the biological limits of our brains, and it works within them rather than fighting against them.
Which brings us to the challenge. Emma and Ryan actually laid down a challenge for their audience, and we want to pass that directly on to you today.
A good one.
It's incredibly simple, and it takes almost zero time. Choose one new word today. Just one. Make one simple sentence using that word. And as Emma says, it does not have to be perfect. It only has to be yours.
Just yours.
Then say it out loud or write it down in a notebook. That is it. That is the whole challenge. Take that one tiny step today to trigger the momentum.
Because every monumental achievement is just a series of micro actions stacked on top of one another. And as we wrap up our analysis of this approach to learning, this raises an important question.
Oh,
If 15 minutes of hyper-focused small habits can fundamentally change how a person's brain processes a foreign language in just 3 months, what other impossible life goals are you abandoning simply because you wrongly believe you need hours of free time to achieve them?
what a question to end on. A huge thank you to you for carving out some of your precious time and bringing your curiosity to this deep dive today. We know you are busy, and we appreciate you spending these minutes with us. Take care of yourselves, and we will catch you on the next one.